when she stood up on her feet, grabbed those paddles, and said, "Clear." Tears rolled down my cheeks for the second time in her speech. That was such a powerful call to action at the end. And I hit reset button the first time I watched her speech. She inspired me to set my limitations aside and lead a life of dignity and self worth. That is what her speech was when she won the International Speech Contest in 2024. If you haven't already watched her speech, I'm going to share the link in the chat. I very highly encourage each one of you present here to please bookmark it and watch it after this keynote speech. You will love it. I promise you that. So I'm going to do a quick introduction of our speaker tonight. She was born and raised in South Texas. She then moved to Austin, Texas, where she worked at Abbott Laboratories for 25 years before retiring at the age of 53. For the last 8 years, Luisa has been busy rescuing, fostering, and transporting homeless dogs all over the United States. She has fostered and cared for over 1,000 homeless dogs. She joined Toastmasters International in 1989 for 3 years. She rejoined in 2013. In 2019, she competed in the international contest against participants from over 143 countries, where she was placed second in the world. She competed again last year in 2024 and placed first in the world. She won the international speech contest. She is the first Hispanic to achieve first place. She's currently working on starting a free spay neuter clinic for homeless dogs. She loves saving animals, sharing her journey, and making friends along the way. She's striving to make her mother proud. It's an honor and absolute pleasure to welcome Toastmaster Luisa Montalvo, the international speech winner for 2024. Let's welcome Ms. Montalvo. Hi.
Hello, hello. Just to confirm, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you for welcoming me. Hello, India and other people. I'm not sure where everybody's from, but I wanted to say hello. I am here in South Texas, and I'd like to share my journey with you. I want to first start by telling any parent, anybody who has children out there, if you're raising your children, good for you, kudos. But I believe one of the most important aspects of raising a child is being able to allow the child to grow the way they want to grow. My mother and father were so instrumental in giving me everything I feel I needed as a kid growing up. My mother was an Avon district manager. So every Tuesday night, she had a meeting in front of 200 Avon representatives. These women were supposed to be inspired to try to go out and sell more for the district. And it was sell, sell, sell. So my mother would present the whole meeting, and it lasted about an hour and a half. I was about 10 years old when my mother started having these meetings as the manager. And she would stand in front of 200 women and give a meeting. She was an amazing and eloquent speaker. I don't think I will ever be as amazing as she was. But because I saw her do this every Tuesday night, I grew up thinking everybody stood in front of 200 people and could speak. And because of that, today, I have no fear of public speaking. In fact, with me, the more you put in the audience, as in August of 2024, there were 1,500 people in the audience. The more people in the audience, the larger the audience is for me, the better I do. Why? Because I feed off the energy of the audience. To anybody who is able to inspire people on Zoom, wow, my hat is off to you, because It's so hard to do everything on Zoom because I can't see that many people reacting. I don't hear them. I don't see them. So anybody doing anything on Zoom, good for you. I prefer the live audience. I then went on from doing that with my mother almost every week for a few years, being able to get in front of people and give a speech. She would ask me, Luisa, would you like to share what Avon products you use today? I said, oh, yes, I use the shampoo, I use the Avon brush. And so I got very comfortable speaking in front of an audience, which is why I asked the parents of today, if you're raising children, it doesn't matter what age they are, go ahead and put them in front of an audience or the limelight as soon as you can. That way, by the time they hit 30, 40, or 50 years old, they're confident speaking in front of an audience, and you just might be raising a world champion if you do. Just a little side note. I went on to high school. High school taught me a lot because in high school, the teacher in my senior year, which is the last year right before you graduate, asked me if I would like to join UIL, which is, I believe it stands for United Interscholastic League. And that is an organization we have here where students from different high schools can compete against each other. Just in case you didn't know, my number one thing for anything in my life is to compete. Just a little side note, my mother would call me, and we lived 2 blocks away from each other. She would say, Luisa, what are you doing today? I said, Mom, I think I'm going to go mow the yard. She said, really? Well, so am I. And I would tell her, Mom, I think I'm going to mow my yard faster than you're going to mow your yard. And she would say, okay, go. And we would hang up the phone, and I would run outside, and I'd be mowing the yard, and I would get excited because I would finish, and I would be putting up the lawnmower, and I would look, and my mom was already walking down the street to my house, which means she had beat me. She had won. She had mowed her yard faster than I did. I'm like, oh, but she was so competitive, and I'm so glad she was able to instill that in me. So, in case you didn't know, I am very competitive. I will compete and compete and compete until I win. I'll talk about later how once I competed and won, now I don't know what to do because I can't compete anymore. But going back to high school, I would perform and compete in what they called impromptu speaking, which is kind of like our table topics now, where they'll give you a topic, but they want you to talk about the topic for 5 minutes. I think the beauty of high school, which Toastmasters doesn't do, is in high school, once I would compete at a contest, the judges' notes, they were given to me. That way, I would be able to see what it was the judges were looking for. I'm not sure why Toastmasters won't do this for us, because to me, if you're spending 8 months to a year wanting to compete in a contest, I would love to see or have seen for the last 11 years that it took me to win. I would love to have seen the judges' comments on what I was doing wrong, how I could improve, those kind of things. In high school, this is again 1977. So just try to go back. What is that? 50 years? I can't even keep count anymore. I know I'm old. That's all I know. So going back to 1977, the judges were not DEI. They said exactly what they wanted to say. And again, most judges back then were also men. They would say, Luisa, great vocal variety, great, interesting topics, but maybe next time you might want to wear a dress, or you might want to put on makeup, or fix your hair. And I thought, what does that have to do with me giving a speech? I felt if my speech was interesting enough, those other items should not have mattered. But apparently, back in 1977, they mattered. So I sat there and read all the comments from the judges. And I'm going to let you know this. If you compete, you have to have your thickest coat of skin on. because people are going to say so many things to you about when you speak. Now, don't get me wrong. They might come up and say, oh, wow, that was a great speech. But, when you said this, I didn't like that. Now, my little tip here for you is that when anybody criticizes or critiques or evaluates your speech, don't get offended. Put on that thick coat of skin and listen to what they're actually saying. Did they say, Luisa, I didn't like those shoes you were wearing? Okay, well, if they say that and I ask them why, oh, well, because I had a pair of shoes like that and my dog chewed them up. Okay, so now you find out that that's a personal critique. That's a personal evaluation and almost doesn't have anything to do with your speech. Now, if somebody comes up and says, Luisa, you spoke so fast, I couldn't understand you. Okay, now that's a good critique. Why? Because it has to deal with the speech and how you gave it. And if one person thinks you spoke too fast, chances are a few people think you spoke too fast. So that's something you want to listen to. And again, what I love to do when somebody comes up and critiques me, let's say, Luisa, you spoke too fast. Really? Is there a certain area or a certain part? Well, that part where you were getting excited, you spoke way too fast. Okay, well, the part where I got excited, I wanted to speak fast. Or the part where you talked about how you got scared, I don't think you should have spoken fast. Okay, all right. People will critique you and they'll evaluate you, and that's great. But in the end, just like my mom would say, you can get the best advice from everybody, but in the end, you're going to do what you want to do. And that's exactly true. You can be in a relationship and the other person's terrible, and all your friends are like, oh my gosh, Lisa, you need to break up. You move on, find somebody else. But in the end, they're giving you good advice. But in the end, if you really like that person, you're going to stick with them and you're going to try to make it work. So that's kind of the same thing when you're writing a speech or when you're performing a speech. I'm not sure how many of you have been able to watch my speech from 2024 and the 2019 speech. In the 2019 speech, there's a part where halfway through my speech, I pull out a rosary. And for those of you that don't know what a rosary is, for those of us that are Catholic or Christian, sometimes we wear a rosary and it's a religious piece of something that we wear, and we wear it for whatever reason, to protect ourselves or just to have it, or maybe it was handed down to us by our mother or our grandmother, or anybody in your family. So I pulled out a rosary, and some of my friends in Toastmasters said, Lisa, you don't want to do that. You're bringing up God. And I thought, okay, well, if I'm bringing up God and somebody else gets offended, I have to be very careful in the way I present it. And so I kind of made it as a joke, because for me, it was part of the thing that Mexican culture people have all the time. They always have a cross or a rosary or something religious. So I made it as part of a joke. And it seemed to be okay in the speech. This year, however, when I mentioned God, I prefaced it with the fact that, oh, I went to heaven and I saw my God. And I said, oh, I say my God because I don't want to offend some of you. And the audience laughed. And then I said, I want to offend all of you. And people laughed even more. So if you're going to bring up a delicate subject in a speech, my recommendation would be to put it in a way where people will not get offended. Because the last thing you want to do is offend your audience. I like to use what I call self-deprecating humor. which means I am going to put myself down to be able to, one, hopefully the audience will like me because I'm attacking myself. I'm not attacking the audience. Two, I am sharing part of my vulnerability with the audience, and I'm hoping the audience is able to relate to that. So when I was practicing my 2024 speech, I mentioned God 8 times. 8 times, not once or twice, 8 times. The way I presented it made it allowable for the people to accept what I said. After they posted my speech on YouTube, one gentleman got on the comments and wrote, I don't like the way Luisa portrays God. This video, I demand it be taken down, removed from YouTube because of the way she speaks about God. Wow. Okay. What I thought was absolutely beautiful was I had about 7 Toastmasters get on YouTube and defend my speech and how and why I used God. That to me was beautiful. There was one comment where I believe a person said, we should be discussing this, building a bigger table, not having stuff removed. And I went, that's exactly right. If we start talking about this, I went with the idea that even bad publicity is good publicity. So people were talking about, oh my gosh, she said God, should she have said it? I said it, and I'll tell you why. I wanted to be true to myself. But Luisa, what if you mention God and you don't win? Guess what? I'll come back next year and do it again. Do it until you are pleased with what you've done, pleased with what you've presented. And here's the thing. Back when I joined in 1989, I met the Storkeys, and I'm not familiar. I don't know if you're familiar with who the Storkeys are. I believe they're from Australia. They're a couple that's been in Toastmasters for many, many years. Back in 1989. That was the first time I competed, and I competed in the humorous contest. And I gave a speech about how my mother would dress me in itchy pink dresses. I didn't like the color pink, and I didn't like being in itchy clothes. But because she was a seamstress and made all my dresses, they were always with that tool, and it was always so itchy. I gave a speech about that, a humorous speech. And back when I saw, so I was in Toastmasters in 1989 for 3 years until my job no longer offered it. So I made a huge mistake. I think I took a 22-year break. And then when I moved back down here to live close to my mom, I recall going into the library. And as I'm walking into the library to use their internet, because I hadn't set it up yet, there was a big yellow sign right there on the door that said, join Toastmasters. And I went, oh my gosh, yes, I have to join again because I had so much fun the first time. So I started competing again in 2013. And I don't know, 1997, 2013, I'm not sure, let's see, 13, 14, 15, 16 years later or more, 16, I went back to compete. And guess who's in the audience? The Storkeys are there in the audience at the district conference. Mrs. Storkey came up to me and said, Luisa, I remember the speech you gave about your mom making those pink dresses and how they were itchy and you didn't like them. Wait, what? It was over 13 years because it was 1989. It had been 23 years. And this woman came up and told me she remembered I gave a speech and what it was about 23 years later. You see, sometimes we get so caught up in wanting to win that we forget to leave our audience with a message. And that to me is so important. And let me tell you why. If somebody can come up to me 23 years later and say, I remember what you said, I always ask them, do you remember what the first place winner talked about? Well, no, that was 23 years ago. Exactly. But you remembered what I talked about? Well, yes, because you left a message and what you said. I said, I would rather leave an impression in someone's mind of what I said than taking home a trophy. Now, don't get me wrong. Trophies, they're nice. I love it. Absolutely love it. However, my main goal is to leave my audience with a message, something they can use, something they'll remember, something they'll grasp. That to me, that's the most important thing to me. So when she came up 23 years later and said, I remember, fantastic. Then I did my job. I left her with a message. And I was so impressionable that she remembered it. So moving on, I joined Toastmasters when I walked into the library, saw the sign, and I walked into the room, the first meeting, coming back after moving back here in 2012, 2013. And I walked into a room, all the people, all the members there, they all had gray hair. They were all so old. I said, oh my gosh, I can't join this club. It's a bunch of old people. I told them I would be back next week, that I would think about wanting to join. And on my way home, just as my God always shows me what I need to see, I'm driving home and it's in the city. So we're all driving a little slow, 30, 40 miles an hour. But there's this one guy in the fast lane and he's going like 20 miles an hour. I'm like, oh my gosh. Well, I can see that he's got gray hair and I almost want to honk to tell him to move over. But instead, I go around him. And I look at him and I want to tell him, like, I want to ask him, why are you in the fast lane? You're going so slow. Well, I roll down my window and I look at him and he sees me. He goes, hi, Luisa. And I said, Ruben? He said, yes, how are you? I said, oh my gosh, Ruben. I moved back to the valley. I graduated with Ruben in high school. And if I thought he was a grandpa already, guess what that means I look like? That I was a grandma. Because if he looked old, I had to look old. And I went, wow, okay, maybe Hub City Toastmasters is the right club for me to join because Luisa, you've got gray hair, you're old too. Just join the club. So I did. I went back and joined that club, and they have been my home club for the last 13 years, 11 years. Oh, I'm terrible at math. Okay, don't ask me to do the math. You do it. Okay, anyway, 2013. When I walked into the club, one lady came up to me. She happened to be the president of the club at the time. She said, Luisa, would you like a mentor? And I thought, do I need a mentor? I don't know. Sure. I mean, if you want to help me, she says, okay, I can be your mentor. Well, I didn't realize that she wanted me to be a mentor, not to compete, but to help her with gavel masters for teenagers, for students in high school. She wanted to be my mentor so she could help me with leadership so I could be the president or the sergeant at arms. And I'm like, wait, Phyllis, I love to compete. I need mentorship in how to compete. And she looked at me and she said, Lisa, you've got that. We need help with these other items. Okay, all right, Phyllis. Here it is, 2025. Phyllis, my mentor, will turn 95 years old this year. 95 and still in Toastmasters. We go to 3 meetings a week. She's just absolutely amazing. She had such a fear of public speaking that 4 years after Toastmasters started to allow women, because there was a time when you could not be a Toastmaster if you were not a man. Women were not allowed. So 4 years after Toastmasters started allowing women, she joined. So she's been in Toastmasters, I think it's 47 years now. Wow, what dedication. I'm just in awe of her. I remember talking to her, and in 2013, she told me, Luisa, you need to start competing in the international speech contest. I'm like, no, no, Phyllis, I like humorous. I want to be funny. I like to make people laugh. She says, you can do humorous and international, but start doing international. Okay, fine. Let me see. What am I going to talk about? I went to the first district conference that had humorous in it back, international, I think in 2013. And I'm going to be very honest with you. I left that contest feeling kind of sad, depressed. People were talking about how their brother had died of cancer, or how their sister was in an accident and donated her eyes and somebody else was able to see. And I thought, oh my gosh, it was all these speakers were talking about hard times in their life. I felt so sad, and that's just not me. I wanted to be happy and humorous and leave a message. And every time I went to go speak or give a speech at the district level for international, I was up against those kind of speeches. One gentleman talked about where he was in school, how the teacher used to make fun of him because he couldn't read. He suffered from dyslexia, which means the letters aren't where they should be when you're reading. And I thought, a teacher made fun of him? Oh my gosh, how terrible. And then I was talking to my God and I said, you know, God, I've had the perfect life. I don't have anything terrible to share. What can I talk about? And then I realized that all these people were sharing their stories because they wanted to leave us with a message. They wanted to inspire us in some way. And I thought, okay, well, maybe I can talk about something that's inspiring. Let me see. And I'm going to give you a tip right now. If you want to win a contest, you're not going to like what I have to say. You are going to have to share your most embarrassing, hurtful, raw experiences that you've had in your life. Just to give you an idea, in 2024, in August, my speech, I say something that was very hard for me to say. You see, my father, while we were growing up as kids, would tell us that we shouldn't cry at all. There was nothing for us to cry about. We had a roof over our heads. We had food on the table. We had clothes on our back. We had shoes. We had a car to get to school, to get to work. So there should be no reason why we, his children, should cry. If something sad were to happen, okay, well, it's sad. Something happy is going to happen, so don't worry about the sad. So when I got on stage and talked about how I had to be in a rehab facility for 90 days, not know anybody where I was because I was 2,000 miles away from home. I didn't have family around. I didn't have friends. I didn't have anybody really to talk to except for the people that were taking care of me. So I remember going into the gym right before I was going to work out, because for those of you that don't know, I was in a car accident and it left me unable to walk. I'll spare you the details, but everything from my hips down was shattered in the accident. So I couldn't walk. So I had to go to physical therapy every morning, and I had to keep working on upper body and then slowly start working on my lower body. But I believe 67 days had passed after the accident, which was a little over 2 months. And I guess I had a little breakdown, little mental breakdown, because I was around people I didn't know. I didn't want to be there. It was cold in Baltimore. I like it nice and hot here in South Texas. I didn't know the people. There was a lot of crime on TV. I would watch the news. I was just very uncomfortable there. So they had told me, as soon as we're able to clear you health-wise, you can fly back home. I wasn't able to clear that for 3 months. So 2.5 months in, I'm rolling myself into the gym because I'm in a wheelchair, and I'm still in a wheelchair. And for some reason, I just started crying. I guess I was at a point where I was just tired of it. And on stage, I admitted that I started crying. I said, because my father always said, quitters cry. And even though he said that, I started to cry. And even now, oh my gosh, I'm getting choked up sharing that with you because, you know, when we do something, when we do whatever we do, there's a reason, a deep rooted reason why we act the way we act, why we react the way we react. So for me, it was a very personal, interpersonal thing that I said. And even though my father said, quitters cry, I started to cry. A lot of people told me that line meant a lot to them. Well, it meant a lot to me. I didn't want to share it, but I wanted my audience to know where I was mentally and why I was crying. I invite anyone to go a day without walking, one day in a wheelchair. I invite anyone to do that. You know what? Once you've done one day in a wheelchair, go 1 week in a wheelchair and don't walk anywhere. I recall maybe, okay, for me, from my front door to my car takes me walking 10 seconds. In a wheelchair after my accident, it would take me 15 minutes to get from my front door to my car. So I had that little mental breakdown thinking, Luisa, you can't walk, you can't do anything. And then I started to think, wait a minute, you can. In my speech, and I think I should have shared this and I wasn't able to. In my speech, I remember going into the gym, and I knew everybody there because we would go to the gym every morning. Every morning we'd go and do physical exercise. That morning that I broke down crying, I went up to my machine and I start working out, and this gentleman is working out next to me. Handsome young guy. I mean, he's just built, and I'm like, ooh, he looked good, you could tell. And he was just so happy to be there, and he's working out. And I thought, oh my gosh, why is this guy so happy? And I said, hi, how are you? He said, oh, hey, I'm so and so. And guess what? I'm going to get married. I'm so excited. And we're making wedding plans. And she's the girl of my dreams and blah, blah, blah. I thought, oh, yeah, okay, great. So happy for you. Good luck with that. And then I looked down and realized he had just been in an accident and he had lost both of his legs. And here I was crying because I couldn't walk. Now, mind you, the doctor said they didn't know if I would be able to walk again, but I was going to prove them wrong because I'm competitive. And I've learned that anytime anybody tells me I can't do something, you just ignited a fire in me, and I'm going to show you I can do something. Whatever you think I can't do, I'm going to come back and show you I can. But you know, the beauty of that gentleman without his legs and still happy, that was a turning point in my life for me to realize just how grateful I should be. What my father was saying, you have a roof over your head, you have food on the table. Luisa, you still have your legs. Eventually you'll walk. It might not be soon. And for those of you that aren't keeping track of the math, I am. It's almost been 3 years that I've been able to walk. The beauty of that gentleman being in the gym, do you know that it was the only day I saw him in the gym? Everybody else in the gym, I knew them. Why? Because every day that I went to the gym, they were the same people working on physical therapy. That was the only day I saw him. It was like he was put there just at that right time and the right day for me to see him. Wow, I still think about that. And I didn't share that in the speech, and I wanted to. Okay, so I made a mistake. All right, write it down. Luisa made a mistake. So in 2019, I get on the stage. I finally, after 6 years, 7 years, make it to the world stage. And I'll tell you why I made it to the world stage. Remember my mentor, 95-year-old Phyllis Allen? She comes up to me in 2019, and I'm headed to district, and she said, Luisa, do you know why you're not winning? But what? She goes, I know why you're not winning the district. I said, Phyllis, I've been competing here for the last 7 years, and you're just not going to tell me what my problem is. Why didn't you tell me the first year I was competing? She goes, well, I just noticed it. You're too competitive. You're too serious. You know what your problem is, Luisa? So what's my problem, Phyllis? Just you're not having any fun. Fun? Fun? Phyllis, this is a contest, not a con fun. It's a contest. They're testing me to see if I'm a good speaker. She goes, well, I just thought I'd let you know. It doesn't look like you're having any fun, and the audience can sense that, so maybe try having fun. She'd been in Toastmasters for 40 years. Maybe she knew what she was talking about. See, this is the part where you ask yourself, do I want to listen to what she has? I mean her critique is just, okay, fine. I'll try and get up on stage and have fun. Well, guess what? 2019, I got on stage at district and had fun. People were talking about death and dying and divorce and teachers making fun of them. I got up and talked about how my dad convinced me or instilled in me always that whatever I think I can do, you can do. So that was my message in 2019. So that speech got me all the way to the semifinals. Wow. Here's a part that might shock you. When you make it to district and you're competing, and if you're going to try to go all the way to the final stage, you have to have 2 speeches. That first speech gets you all the way up to the semifinals. The second speech is once you win semifinals, go on to the finals, it has to be a different speech. You don't compete with just one speech. That first speech takes you all the way to semifinals, and then after that, different speech. So guess what? When you see people competing on the world stage and they are giving you their finals speech, that is not their best speech. Why? Because they already used their best speech 2 days earlier at the semifinals. You're going to try to use your best speech because you want to make it to the finals. So my best speech was my semifinal speech. I used drumsticks. I talked about how people would tell me I can't do things, and I would say, really? Watch me. Just like my doctors told me I probably wouldn't walk. Really? Watch me. So that speech, my semifinal speech, was my best speech. So now what do? Once you make it to district, you're thinking, if I make it to the semifinals and then to the finals, I need to have a second speech ready. So many people, I know Aaron Beverly, who placed first in 2019, he had been practicing that second speech, the one he won with in 2019. He'd been practicing that for, I think, 8 months. Like, oh my gosh. So as soon as I won district in May, I knew I would be possibly going to the semifinals in August. So I wrote my speech, and it's the speech that I presented for my final speech. But here's the thing. You know how you can be really sure about something that, oh, yes, this is good. There's always going to be something in the back of your head that says, not good enough. You can't do it. Why are you even trying? I think it's called doubt. Is that what it is? Doubt? Yes, that's what it is. In 2019, I had what I thought was the perfect speech for the finals. And the night before, my mentor Phyllis Allen went with me because she loves she loves going to the international conferences. She went with me. So the night before I'm about to give my finals speech, I said, Phyllis? She said, yes. I said, I don't like the speech I have ready for finals. And I remember she was in the restroom blow drying her hair, and she looked out the restroom. She says, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to change my speech. You're going to change your final speech? Yeah, I'm going to change it. Luisa, the contest is tomorrow. I said, yeah, I know, but I don't like it. I'm not comfortable with it. She thought I was insane. And to be quite honest, she was right. I was crazy. I was going to go up against people that had been practicing a speech for over 4-5 months. But you know what? I got on stage in 2019. I had rewritten my speech. I started out with, of course, howdy, y'all. I'm Luisa Montalvo, and I'm from South Texas. I wrote that speech the night before there in the hotel room. And the next day when I got on stage, I remembered what Phyllis Allen had said. She said, Luisa, have fun. So if you look at me on stage in that 2019 video, I'm having the most fun. Why? Because it's okay if I'm going to lose. It's okay if I'm not bringing home a trophy. I'm having fun. And if I don't win, guess what? I'll come back next year. I get on stage 2019. I give my speech. I'm having the best time of my life. And when they announce the winners, in fact, a friend of mine from our district had gotten on Facebook the day before. They're at the conference. And he said, wow, we have somebody competing and they could go all the way to first place in the finals. And I looked at it and I went, Phyllis, who is he talking about? There's nobody else competing but me. She goes, he's talking about you, Luisa. I went, oh, okay. Here we go again. A stranger, what my speech was about, tells me I can go all the way. I've been trying to convince myself of that, but of course, we don't listen to ourselves. We'll listen to a stranger before we listen to ourselves. So I thought, wow, if maybe I can go to the finals. Maybe I can win first place. I won second. It was amazing. It was euphoric. I still remember them announcing my name. I was so excited. People came up and said, Luisa, your speech was so good. You should have won first. And I tell them, you should have been a judge. Right? But here's the beauty, because I did question my God. And I remember flying home after the speech, after winning second in 2019. And I asked God, my God, I said, why, I wanted to win. Why didn't I win? Was it because I changed the speech at the last minute? What, why didn't I win? And the good thing about my God is he always lets me know answers to my questions. You see, when you are crowned first place winner in the world, people, districts from all over the world immediately start to invite you to their district conferences. Aaron Beverly was invited to Saudi Arabia, to Sri Lanka, to Portugal, to India. He was invited to go all over the world. Me coming in second place, I was invited to go a few places also. But does anybody remember what happened at the end of 2019 and beginning of 2020? COVID? So guess what? Nobody traveled anywhere. Okay. I get it, God. I get it. Right. Thank you. I understand. Now for 2019, Puebla, Mexico, their district had invited me to go and speak at their district conference. And it was the only district conference I was able to attend because of COVID. I remember going, getting on stage, and they did tell me, Luisa, we have a translator for you, so don't worry about speaking in Spanish. You know, whoever doesn't understand, they'll have the little buds, so they'll hear your speech translated. And I said, okay. And before I took the stage for my keynote, one lady came up to me, and I do understand Spanish, and I speak it so. But she came up to me, and in Spanish, she said, I've traveled 4 hours to come and listen to you talk. She goes, you're the first Hispanic to make it to one of the top 3. What? She says, I'm so excited to be here. Again, a stranger telling me this. And I got on stage and I thought, Luisa, the lady was sitting right in the front row, just looking at me, a smile on her face. So I started to speak in Spanish. I said, hola, ¿cómo están todos? And they all took out their ear translators. And I said, and in Spanish, I said, okay, I can do one of 2 things. I can speak to you in English and speak slowly. I said, or I can speak to you in Spanish and speak even slower. And they're all like, Español, Español. And I said, okay, here we go. The joy I received from 400 people taking off their translator earbuds, to me, trying to get through an hour and a half keynote in Spanish, I just fed off their energy, and you could just see it in their faces. They just wanted me to succeed. And I would tell them, don't tell me what the word is. Hang on, let me think about it. And they would all laugh. And eventually I would come up with some word. It was probably the wrong word. And I remember after my keynote, I got a standing ovation. And the lady that was sitting right in front had a smile on her face. And after everybody got in line and we were all taking selfies, and she comes up to me and we take a picture together, and she said, Luisa, congratulations. That was amazing. I said, it was terrible. She said, you tried. That was all we needed to see, is an effort. That's all we needed to see, is that you cared enough to want to try. And I said, well, thank you so much. And she went to leave, and I turned around to go and shake the next person's hand. And she said, Luisa. And I turned around. I said, yes. She said, good luck on trying to make it to the first place, to be the first Hispanic to win. Wait, what? I have to do this another 7 years? Are you kidding me? Aren't you happy with second? I'm happy with second. Come on, can't you be happy with second? Do I have to do this again? And she looked at me and she said, again, here's a stranger, Luisa, if anybody can do it, you can do it. Oh, man. So here we go again. 2020 was Zoom, virtual, COVID. Nope, I'm not competing. I already know I can't do Zoom. Not going to do it. 2021, I competed. Didn't even make it to district. 2022, I try again. And ironically, the day that I was supposed to compete in the area contest was the day I had my accident. And I remember my district conference Toastmaster calling me, and she called me a week later. She said, hey, Luisa, we really missed you at the contest. And I said, you know what? I'm sorry. I was in a coma. It was very hard for me to remember my lines. And she said, oh, I've heard every excuse now, which I thought was hilarious. But after the accident in 2023, I lost my life partner of 24 years. She passed away. So In 2024, which was last year, a few months ago, 6 weeks before the contest, my mother passed away. And I'm sitting in my car thinking, why are you competing? The two most important people in your life are gone. Why are you going? Don't get on the plane. It was the night before that I was supposed to get on the plane to go to Anaheim. I said, you know what? Just do this next year. You don't have to go this year. And within a minute, my phone went bing, and I got a text from Jeff Stein in Chicago, a Toastmaster I've never met. A Toastmaster that from 2019 has been constantly texting me, hey, how's it going? How you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Hey, are you going to compete this year? I'm thinking of competing. What's your speech about? Can you listen to mine? I'll listen to yours. Just a great all-around guy. So I'm sitting in my car the night before I'm supposed to go to Anaheim. And he sends me a text message because he knows I'm competing in the semifinals. And it said, you never know who you're inspiring. Don't quit. What? I called him up. Jeff. He says, hey, Luisa, what's going on? I said, I hate you. What? You hate me? I just sent you a text to keep going. I said, I know. I had just convinced myself not to go. And now you send me this text about you don't know who you're inspiring. Don't quit. I said, shoot, now I got to get on the plane, Jeff. He said, Luisa, this is your year. I'm like, yeah, you tell everybody that. He says, no, Luisa, I'm serious. This is your year. Okay, fine. I get on the plane, and the rest is history. I cannot instill just how important Toastmasters, this Toastmaster family, is to me, because there were so many times I didn't want to go to a meeting. I didn't want to give a speech. I was having a bad day. But as soon as I walked into the Toastmaster meeting, somehow, magically, everything would change. I go to 3 different clubs here, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And on other days, I'm doing podcasts and I'm doing keynotes for people in India. Oh, how amazing. How amazing is that? In May, last part of April, all of May, I'll be all over Europe having the time of my life because my mother instilled that traveling was the best thing you could do because you learn about people from other cultures and other parts of the world. And it's just so amazing. And I get to do that. And some of you are thinking, well, Luisa, that's because you're a good speaker. No. You can be a good speaker. You just have to do the 4 things that I did when I competed. Luisa, what are the 4 things? I said the right thing on the right day at the right time to the right judges. That's it. Well, Luisa, how can you say that? You know why? Because so many of the times I had great speeches, and guess what? I didn't win. I've lost over 40 contests. But like a bad rash, I don't go away. I keep coming back and back and back. I love competing. And this is for anything in your life, whatever you are trying to tackle, whether you're trying to lose weight, whether you're in a relationship, whether it's your marriage, whether it's your family, whatever your job, whatever it is. Ask yourself, how serious are you about this? And that's going to be your answer. Like me, I want to lose weight, but am I serious about it? No. Why? Because after every meeting, we go eat tacos and I get 3 tacos instead of 2. So I'm obviously not serious about losing weight. I was, however, serious about winning contests. And I have been so lucky to have had this journey. And anything I can do to help anyone else that has the desire that I do of competing in a contest. And I urge everybody to try it just once to say, hey, you know what? I competed and I came in third. Well, there were only 3 of us, but I came in third. It's okay. You did it. You know, you're in Toastmasters for a reason. You're trying to put yourself out there. You're trying to be able to speak publicly well. Join a contest. Go have fun. Like Phyllis Allen told me, go have fun. I want to thank all of you for listening to me, ramble on and on about my life and how Toastmasters has influenced me. And I hope that Toastmasters influences you in the way you want it to. I appreciate the invite. Thank you so much for listening. Back to you, CM Toastmaster.
Thank you very, very much, Luisa. It was wonderful. Some very important lessons we learned. My takeaways: have a thick skin, don't offend others. You can be self deprecating, that's okay. Message matters more than the trophy.
Mhm.
Mentor like Phyllis Allen would be wonderful. You must be willing to share the most embarrassing moments of your life if you were to win. Have fun, don't be too serious. And most importantly, do the right thing at the right time on the right day with the right judges, and you're there to win. It's been amazing. Thank you very, very much, Luisa. So now we can open the gates of communication and ask some questions, shall we? So, audience, you're welcome to ask questions now. We can allocate about 15 minutes or even more. She's willing to help, and that's great. Thank you. So, Alok, if you could please type your questions in the chat, it'll be great. Please type your question in the chat. I will moderate the questions. That way it becomes easy, or else we could lose out on time. So that's the reason. Please type it in the chat. By the way, I've shared the link to the International Speech Contest Championship speech of 2024. So please click on that, bookmark it. I promise you, there's a bunch of takeaways from that speech from Luisa Montalvo. It's going to be amazing. It could change your life. I know. So click on that link, please bookmark it and watch it over and over again.
Too cute.
Okay, could you please type the questions in the chat window?
Oh my goodness.
I know that some of you are typing, so I'm going to hang on for a little bit. And one of the things that I liked about Luisa's speech, whether it's the speech contest or tonight, she makes us laugh and cry at the same time. And I cried a couple of times, I promise you that. That's her strength, right? It's so amazing. It was touching. Thank you, Luisa. Alok, would you like me to unmute your microphone? Will that help you? Alok? Alok?
Yeah, can I ask this question? I was typing, but my speed is slow on my mobile phone.
Me too.
Thank you, Luisa. It was really a very wonderful keynote speech, and we really loved. One question I'm having, like, I had watched your 2019 speech. I have also watched your 2024 speech. And one thing what I observed between 2019 versus 2024, like here, your pace was pretty slow. You were taking good pause, deliberate pause. Their pace was pretty high, energetic, as you mentioned. Like it was it deliberate this time thought process that okay, let me make my pace down, pause, add more pauses, and all those things. Uh, just I want to get your thought on that. Like, how did you craft your speech 19 versus 2024?
Great question. And I'll tell you what led me to that. I have my best friend absolutely loves the 2019 speech. She said, that's like you, Luisa. That's you all the time. And I remember when I was competing this year, she asked me, she said, how are you going to beat that speech? from 2019 and I went, oh, wow, how am I going to beat that speech? And then I went, wait a minute. I'm not competing against that speech. I'm competing with other people and their speeches. So I want to make my speech different from the 2019 because we had an actor here by the name of Jerry Lewis, a famous comedian, and he was funny, funny, funny. And every time you saw him in a movie, he was funny. And then one time they put him in a serious movie and nobody liked him because they wanted to see him be funny. So they would start stereo casting or typecasting only in comedy. And I didn't want that to be me. I didn't want to be the speaker that, oh, Luisa, she's going to say something funny. I'm ready to laugh. No, I wanted to show my audience that, look, 2019 was kind of a humorous kind of speech, but 2024, I'm going to be different. I'm going to put a little humor in there, but I'm going to have a powerful message. And so that's why I went from one extreme to the other. I didn't want to always be known as, oh, Luisa, she's funny. Yeah, let's watch her. No, I wanted to be different. And that's why I went from 2019 to 2024. There's the difference. Great question. Thank you for noticing.
Sorry, just one follow-on questions on that, if your time permits, CM Manjunath. Yeah. In somewhere I have watched that recording on the YouTube, and there you had mentioned that during 2024, you had, when you were delivering the speech, final speech, you had forget some of script of your speech as well. And also you mentioned like other part of there, you had also mentioned that you had to stand up like heaven talk when we were talking about the heaven. And you mentioned that it was not deliberate, it was just at that moment. Now my question is, now when you are preparing for such a international speech competition, where lots of practice goes, as you mentioned, like people prepare 6 months, 8 months well in advance, prepare again and again. And how did you bring like impromptu sort of things? Okay, let me do this, take a risk that, okay, let me bring something new without preparation. And you also mentioned that you like the vibes of the more the people. And I'm wondering, like, if the Luisa likes the vibes of the people, that much more people, more energy, more enthusiastic, how can she forget the speech script? I am, and what about me? Like the people like us, we can go blank on this stage if 1,500 people. So what is your take and what is the message for us? How we can prepare for so that we don't forget our script?
That is an excellent question. And if I had the answer, I would tell you because I can practice a speech over and over and over and over. And I will be honest with you, the day that I was going to compete last year, August 2024, I wanted to change my speech because I did not like the speech that won first place this year. I did not like it. To me, it was too serious. Again, I like to be upbeat, laughter, humor. But the contest chair told me I couldn't change my speech. So I went back up to my hotel room and I said, okay, Luisa, this is either going to be the best speech you give or the worst speech you give. It's up to you. So I had to make a little mental paradigm shift. I said, okay, Luisa, this is going to be the great speech. This is the one that's going to win. Let's do it. And I had practiced a few steps on what I was going to do. Originally, I did not want to have my wheelchair on the stage. But the day before in the lobby, a friend of mine was pushing my wheelchair and they had carpet. So my foot got caught on the carpet and my knee bent under the wheelchair and it put me in a lot of pain. So when I actually got on stage with the winning speech, when I said, hey, I went into heaven, I said, I'm standing at the pearly gates and I go to stand up. And I thought, okay, Luisa, just stay standing the whole speech so they can see you can stand. But halfway through the speech, my niece said, Luisa, sit down. Sit down. You are in pain. So I was hoping my face didn't show that I was hurting. So I sat down and ironically, I sat down at the part where I came from heaven and came back down to earth. So it worked perfectly. And those things for me usually wind up happening out of coincidence, because you can practice something over and over and over. But when you get in front of that stage, in front of 1,700 people, everything changes. Why? Because you can't practice that part. You can practice your speech. You can't practice how you're going to get nervous, because everybody gets nervous. It's just learning to control it. You can't practice how sometimes I would say a line that I didn't think was funny, but everybody's laughing. So you have to wait until they finish laughing. And I'm not complaining, but in your mind, that wasn't even funny. Why are you guys laughing? You have to keep going. You have to like, oh, you like that? Okay, that's a laugh. Great. So if you can practice every day with 1,700 people in front of you, then you don't have to make little changes at the end and you won't forget your speech. But that's the part. It's once you get in front of that audience, everything changes. And real quick side note, when I first started competing in 1990, I did get on stage with my humorous speech, and 2 minutes into my speech, my brain shut down. So I walked off and I didn't get to finish my speech. So it happens to everyone. Just to let you know. Great question. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Alok and Toastmaster Luisa. The second question comes from Yavana. Life lesson we learn come from a life event. That event generally has lots of connections to numerous past events, and a lot of many characters are involved. How to restrict your script to like a key central theme and leave the other associated aspects.
So how do you decide what's important, what's not important? Is kind of what the question sounds like.
Right. Oh, Yavana,
Wow,
would you like to? I'm sorry, Yavana, would you want me
Yes,
to unmute your microphone? Please go ahead. If you could clarify.
yes, exactly. So when I feel like, yes, this incident is worth sharing and the message, what I learned from it is worth sharing. But to set the context, it involves lots of characters associated to that event, as well as it has connections to past multiple events in that. So how to restrict to one particular theme and leave every other uh, uh, associated with that. Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
So this question turns into, the answer is word mastery. So instead of saying, I went to the store because we ran out of milk, and when I got in the car wouldn't start. That's 3 or 4 sentences. You need to take those 3 or 4 sentences and compact it. I went to the store. I wanted to go to the store. The car wouldn't start. You see how you took all that other stuff and just made it down to what's really important. It's like when I said, and even though my father said quitters cry, I started to cry. I could have gone and said, as a child, when we were growing up, my dad wouldn't like us to cry, so he would tell us, you don't need all that. Take the meat, take the most important part of what you want to say and squeeze it into 2 sentences. And that's how you get 15 minutes of dialogue into 6 minutes. I used to be so serious competing in 2019 that I went back and counted syllables. Instead of saying syllables, I would just say words. That's how serious I was, because I wanted to say as much as I could in the short time that I have. And you think 7 minutes is not a short time? It is when you have a lot to say. So the way you decipher what to use and what not to use, you start out with a 15 or 20-minute speech, and you have to keep asking yourself, is this important? No, then don't say it. Is this important? No, then don't say it. And keep crossing it out. As long as you still have the meat of what you want to say in that speech, narrow it down and use it. And if you can, find a different way to say it where it's more impactful than you saying 4 sentences. Hope that helped. That's my suggestion.
Yeah, that was a great input. Thank you so much, Luisa. That
Yes, ma'am.
helps.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you, Yavana. Thank you, Luisa. Now, this question is from me to Toastmaster Luisa. What goes in your mind? What's your mindset like when you sit down to write your script,
Ah,
how do you come up with your stories? How do you choose that key message that's going to impact perhaps thousands of lives in the future? How do you do that?
Great question. I've got the perfect answer. This is going to help anybody writing any speech, and I share it when I give a session on how to write a speech. I will be driving, and some guy is going to cut in front of me, and I'm going to get mad, and I'm going to get upset. And instead of doing or saying anything about it, I grabbed my phone. I said, you know what, Luisa, you need to tell everybody that they need to learn how to drive because it upsets other people, blah, blah, blah. And I get my phone and I go to voice memo. So I hit record and I record whatever I'm feeling at that moment. And then I put my phone down. I'm done. You know why? Because when somebody tells you you have to write a speech, to me, if you tell me I have to do something, then I don't want to do it. I want to do it when I want to do it, not when you tell me. You know, my mom would tell me, Luisa, clean up your room. Well, I was going to clean up my room, Mom, but now that you say I have to do it, I don't want to do it. And it's the same thing when we get writer's block, when we can't think of what we want to talk about. So whenever you get upset, whenever you're super happy, whenever you're mad, whenever you're down or depressed or whatever, grab your phone and say, I don't know why I'm feeling this way. Maybe it's the weather. Maybe it's because, my cat's sick. Maybe it's because, I don't know, I don't have enough money and I really wanted to go to Taco Bell. I really wanted, whatever it is, just hit voice memo, record it, and then put your phone down. And then later you're washing dishes or you're washing your car or you're cutting your yard. You go, oh, I need to talk about this too. Grab your phone again, go to voice memos. Okay, I'm going to also talk about the time that I got mad when that guy cut me off in traffic. Well, okay, maybe it was my fault because I didn't use my blink. And whatever it is, stop, hit record, and then done. And guess what? In 2-3 weeks, go back to all those recordings that you have of all the different times you went through all these different emotions and start writing everything down. And then from that, you can make an outline. Say, okay, well, this has nothing to do with that. So let's scratch that out. Oh, but this is good. This is good. And then you can start to organize your speech. And then every sentence that you wrote down in your speech, try to elaborate a little bit on that, on why you felt that way. Because let me tell you something. If you feel a certain way on a certain day, guess what? A lot of other people have felt that way. How many times, my 2024 speech, how many times has somebody said, you're good or you're not good? Or how many times have you told yourself, I can't do this. I'm not any good. And somebody else, a stranger, comes up and says, hey, man, you should write a book. You should give a speech. You should sing a song. You should do this. You see, we'll listen to strangers before we listen to ourselves. And that's the message I wanted to project. And that's exactly what I came across, because this accident got me so upset and so mad at myself that I had to share that. But what's the good? What good came out of it? And I like to see that silver lining. So take whatever you can. Anytime you're upset or happy or depressed or whatever, grab your phone, make a memo, go back, look at it later, and then start to put everything together, and you have your outline for a speech.
Right? Is there a process, a framework perhaps, for you to determine if a message would resonate with the audience? If you'd have maybe different sets of messages, which one weighs more? How do you determine that?
Oh, your audience will tell you. You'll get up and give a speech and they'll go, Lisa, that wasn't so good. Oh, okay. All right. And I'll ask people that usually have a critique for me, because you know what? Your family and friends are going to tell you the same thing. Oh, you were great. I loved it. No, I don't need that. I want, yes, it was good. No, it was bad. Okay. Thank you. That's bad. Okay. But if you really, really like it, then when somebody tells you it's not good, go back and make it better. But if you have 3 or 4 different choices, hey, out of these speeches, which one do you like? Oh, you know what? I like the one you said about this and this and that. Okay, we'll go with that one, because you are trying to win the audience over along with the judges. So give the speech that you feel is going to be more impactful on the feedback you got. That's how you determine.
Thank you. Great. The next question comes from Akhila, Toastmaster Akhila Maddi, and her question is, for a beginner who's just getting started in the world of Toastmasters, how do you build confidence? How do you get started the right way?
You stay in Toastmasters for 10 years, and that's how you build the confidence. I know it's going to cost you a lot in dues. I'm sorry about that. But this is an easy question, because out of all the Toastmasters, and I have met so many Toastmasters, I feel it's like a family. Everybody wants the other person to do good, to do well, to grow, to inspire. So I think the longer you stay in Toastmasters and surround yourself with people that care, you will build confidence. Again, this is a family. If you get up there and somebody gives you feedback that you didn't really like, I mean, that's okay, because that's part of life. Life isn't all roses and cake, which I wish it was, especially the cake part. Back to the diet, but we'll talk about that later. So surround yourself with good Toastmasters, and they are everywhere, and they will slowly start to build up your confidence. I guarantee it. I guarantee it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Toastmaster Luisa.
Thank you.
Actually, Toastmasters is a very good family. They're very supportive and very friendly also.
Yes. Yes. You see, there you go. There you go. Look at the confidence you had to ask me that question, and then you give a response. Look at you. You're already growing. You've got that confidence already. All you have to do is continue to nurture that, and you're on your way. Okay? Good luck.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So a couple of weeks ago, I watched a video from Aaron Beverley, and he talks about how he prepares and practices speeches. He recommends people write down the speech by hand, and that gives the connection, right? That gets you going. And then he picks a phone, just like you said, he records it like a voice memo on his iPhone or whatever, and then he listens to it over and over and over again, and then he tries to tweak it and all that good stuff. What's your unique approach to practicing speeches once you've written it?
Well, I guess so. Great question. I think I'm backwards from Aaron Beverly. I grab my phone first and do all the voice memos, and then when I'm happy with the outline, then I write it down. Because if I start writing it down at the beginning of putting the speech together, I'll never get past page one, because no, that doesn't sound right. No. So I'll just be writing and rewriting the first page over and over. So I like to go voice memos first. Then when I think it sounds pretty good, I write it down, handwritten, and I still have my notes from my 2019 speech that won. I still have those, and I will do that, and then I'll look at it and I'll time it, and usually comes in around 10 minutes. And of course, for some of you that don't know, this year or last year, 2024, 2 people were disqualified for going over time. They went over by 2 seconds. They spoke for 7 minutes and 32 seconds. So I always try to keep my speeches to 6 minutes, because you never know if the audience is going to laugh too much, or they're going to cry too much, or whatever they're going to do. You need to have that window be available so you don't get disqualified. So I voice memo, then I write down, then I look at it, and then I record it the exact way I want it to sound, because that's going to be like one of the first times that I'm going to record it. So it's going to sound fresh. So if you ask me to give my speech again right now, it's going to sound exactly the way I gave it 4 months ago, because that's how I always listen to it over and over. It's like a song. It's like happy birthday. Everybody goes, happy birthday to you. Why? Because that's the way we memorized it. That's the way we learned it. So that's what I do with my speech. Play it over and over and over, so I hear it the same way every single time. Great question. Thank you.
Loved it. Thank you very, very much. If there are any more questions, please type it in the chat window. It's 8:24 p.m. India time, and I know it's a work day tomorrow. So if you have no further questions, we can thank Luisa for this amazing session. Okay, now there's a question from Yavana again, and he asks, generally, how many words do you usually use in your contest speech? And I know you mentioned about 6 minutes, and each one has their own pace at which they speak, the rate of speech. But what's your number? The number of words, Luisa?
I'm going to have to ask AI because I have no idea. Or Chat GBT. I have no idea how many words it is. I do know that it takes about 4 to 5 handwritten pages. That I do know. Words, I am so sorry. I have no idea. I'm so sorry.
No problem. Thank you very much. Manish has a question. I'm going to unmute the microphone. Go ahead, Manish, please. Manish? Okay. All right. If there are no further questions, again, I want to thank you very, very much, Toastmaster Luisa Montalvo. It's been an absolute pleasure hosting you, and I've learned so much from you, from your videos, and tonight I had this amazing opportunity to interact directly with you. I want to thank the leadership team at Talkmagic Toastmasters Club, extremely supportive team. I've been here only a couple of months, and the amount of support that I've received is truly overwhelming, and I'm thankful to every Toastmaster that's helping me out. It's been a wonderful evening. For you, it's morning. I hope you have a wonderful day ahead. Thank you very much, Toastmaster Luisa Montalvo. Give it up, everybody. Please unmute your microphone. Say thank you if you'd like, or just give a thumbs up.
Thank you very much, Luisa.
Thank
you,
you.
Luisa.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Good luck to everyone.
Thank
Thanks
you,
for
Thank
having
you.
me.
Thank you.
I'm excited to
Thank
be
you.
hopefully in India soon. Yay.
And we're excited to meet you in person. That's going to be awesome. Looking forward.
Y'all have a great night. Sleep well. Have great dreams. Good day tomorrow. Love you guys.
Yes.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much.
Okay.
Thank
Have a
you
great
so much.
day.
Thank you.
Have a great
Bye.
day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.